Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. We are on episode 60. It is the first week of June, year 2021, and it is super hot. I believe when I recorded the last episode, which was maybe just a week ago, it was still in the 40s in the morning. Yeah, not anymore. Right now, I believe it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and we have a stretch of 90s and high 80s in the next 10-day forecast, which just seems really hot for where I'm coming to you from. We don't usually get strings of 90s for days on end, so it's really hot. I am concerned that our peonies, which have just started blooming, are all just gonna wilt once they bloom. I just brought some of them in. Oh, they smell so good. They're beautiful. Peonies are my favorite. So I think there's 5 or 6 maybe blooms right now, but there's tons coming. But it's going to be so hot, and half of them are in kind of a shadier spot, and the other half, or the majority of them I guess, are in full sun, well, mostly sun. So we'll see how they fare, but I may just have to cut a bunch of them to bring in so that it's a little bit cooler inside. But I just love them. I love them so much. They smell so good, and they're just so soft and fluffy and so beautiful. So yeah, so in the intro of this video, I inserted a little footage from some nature hiking we've been doing. We love to just get out there in nature. I feel like we're most at home surrounded by woods and water. And then there's a little bit of footage of our flower and vegetable gardens, and things are just coming up. And I believe I filmed some of that a few days ago, and they're huge now. I mean, not huge, but a lot bigger than even a few days ago. So that's really exciting. We have about a week left of school, and that's really exciting because we have been distance learning since March 2020, and right now it looks like in the fall school will be reopened for everybody, and I mean, they haven't said anything about a distance learning option, so I'm assuming everybody will be back in school in person. Not sure what it'll look like, but we'll just see what happens. So that didn't start until September for us. So we'll have June, July, August for summer break. As usual, my videos all include closed captioning. I have noticed in the last several weeks and months that YouTube has taken longer to get up the auto captioning that I use to then go in and edit. So what I'm going to do, I think from now on, at least unless something changes, is do my edits, upload, and publish, and then check on it so that when the auto captioning shows up, the closed captioning provided, then I'll just go in and edit and make sure to publish that so that the closed captioning is still there. It just might not show up for a few days. So heads up on that. Yeah, so I have a few finished projects to share with you. They are all socks, no surprise. And I do have a few works in progress to share with you. I think one of the works in progress I haven't even shared on Instagram yet, and I've had a lot of cast-ons. If you've heard of Castonitis, that means you just are itching to always cast on something new. And I won't say I'm always itching to cast on something new. I mean, I generally have something new cast on anyway because socks are a smaller project, so my turnaround is pretty quick. But I don't know, just lately I just kind of want to cast on everything. And it isn't even necessarily new patterns coming out that are making me feel like I have to make that. I don't know, I just get excited about making new things. So, so yeah, let's just get started. The first one I'd like to share with you are the Arctic socks. Those I test knit for Wei Qian, who is known as the Petite Knitter on Instagram, not to be confused with Petite Knit, who is, I think, a Danish designer. The Petite Knitter is an Asian Canadian designer, and these I test knit for her. I did the size 5, and there are 11 sizes, so very size inclusive. They are a tri-color work sock pattern with an afterthought heel that you do put in like waste yarn ahead of time, so it's kind of a forethought heel. And I'll show you mine here. I love how they turned out. So I do suggest picking colors that are more solid or tonal, because the color work portions are like minimal stitches here and there versus like more color block in the color work. So if you picked a yarn that was more variegated or speckled, it might get lost because you could have like one speckle in like a stitch and then you don't see your color work. Of course, if that doesn't bother you, then go ahead and do whatever you want. I think a gradient could be cool to use in it as well as your main color, and then picking very high contrast secondary and, is it tertiary? Secondary and tertiary? Second and third colors. But yes, I chose solids. So I knit mine out of West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply in Nutmeg for my main color, which is this like rusty orangey brown color. And then for, I'll just, don't need to hold two. Then the other colors I used, this pinkish, purpley, fuchsia color is West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply again, and that's Blackcurrant Balm. And both of those are 75% wool, 25% nylon, and I believe like part of that wool is 35% Blue Face Leicester or BFL. And I find the West Yorkshire Spinner yarn to be very hardy. Like, it's not scratchy or itchy, but it like, if you might think of hardy in that way, but I mean like hard wearing. I've made some of my kids' socks with them. I've used them in a lot of like heels and toes, and they last. They don't like pill right away. They just wear really well. So I have that. And then my third color is this chartreuse olivey green, and that is Mondim, which is 100% non-superwash Portuguese wool. And I just wanted to use that not in the color that I would use for the heel, since it's non-superwash. I mean, a lot of people don't have any problem with that, but since I had an option of choosing which one, I decided to choose the one that was superwash with nylon for my heel. Yeah, so I love how it turned out. It's really fun. As I've said before, with color work, for me, it's really exciting because it's like you're painting a picture while you are knitting. So one more round, it's like this tapestry unveils itself, and it's just so fun. I really enjoy it. I did use US 1.5, so I went up half a needle size, then recommended to get gauge. If you're unsure about sizing, like maybe you're in between on sizing, I would recommend going up rather than down, because in color work you already lose some of the elasticity or the stretch just because of floats. But with tri-color work, like, I feel like your chances of having less stretch are even more. I'll show you my floats on the inside of the sock. So this is what I mean by floats. So it's the yarn that's carried when it's not being worked into the stitch. And you want to have relatively loose floats so that you still have some stretch, but because of the nature of having floats, it's just not going to stretch as far as if you didn't have them there. So it's important to keep them even, and I find the best way for me to do even color work is to use the 9-inch circular needles, because there are no intersections for the floats to either be too short or too long. Like, I don't have to have any guesswork with that. I just have to keep it even throughout as I go round and round. And I think part of the reason for me too that it comes natural to me to use the 9-inch circulars is that when I started knitting, I feel like I mostly knit like hats in the beginning, and I always did those on 16-inch circulars. So it was just natural for me to have that process of going round and round. So I learned knitting in the round early on, and that's what comes natural to me. So then just sizing down is still the same kind of motion, But that being said, it's not comfortable for everybody's hands or how they hold the needles to use like such tiny circulars. So if you don't know, like I recommend experimenting and just seeing what works for you and what doesn't. But for me personally, knitting color work on 9-inch circulars gives me the most even tension, and it's enjoyable. So yeah, they fit well. I shared some photos of me wearing them with and without shoes on my Instagram. My handle will be linked in the description box below, as with everything else that I mentioned today, projects and the designers' websites and where they sell their patterns. Wei Chen sells her patterns, I believe, on Lovecraft's, Ravelry, and her website. So you can check those out in the description box below. Oh, and the other thing I forgot I wanted to mention is that I didn't use a ton of yarn for this, and probably because it's not like a super long leg, but also because you use 3 different colors. So my main color, I only used 28 grams. And then the purpley pink color, I used 11 grams. And then the green, I only used 8. So in total, that's 47 grams for these socks. And then for reference, I wear a US 7 women's shoe, foot circumference of 8 inches and foot length of 9¼ inches. And she does recommend to pick a size that is gives you about 10% of negative ease. Okay, so that is that. The next pair of socks I would like to share with you are my husband's socks. And last time, I think I was pretty close to finishing last time, and I might have finished them like the next day after I recorded an episode. But these ones, let me get his blockers here. So for my husband's socks, I used Patton's Croy sock yarn. And that is a 75% 25% wool nylon blend, and you can purchase those. I think they're 50-gram balls, and they come to be about like $5, $6, or maybe even $7 US dollars retail. But you can purchase them at like Michael's, Joann's, and with coupons. So with like a 40% off coupon, you can make a pair of socks for like $5. So here are my husband's socks. I love how they turned out. I'm a big fan of Patton's Croy yarn. It comes out closer to a sport weight, and we live in a climate that's generally on the cooler side, not 90+ degrees always. So sport weight yarn socks are great. I used a total of 77 grams, so I did use from like 2 separate 50 grams and knit them in tandem like I like to do on 2 9-inch circulars. These ones I did use US 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needles. I probably could have even used US 2, but these have a nice density to them. So like I mentioned last time in the last episode, I was planning on doing the vanilla latte socks initially. It's a free pattern, but then I forgot to do the broken rib. So in the purl channels, you would alternate a purl versus knit for each round. Well, I just kept purling in the purl channels, so it's not even the vanilla latte socks pattern anymore. So with a US 1.5 9-inch circular, I cast on 64 stitches using an old Norwegian cast on, which is the same as a German twisted cast on. I really like that stretchy cast on. I use it for everything. I did 15 rounds of a knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. Then I did 30 rounds of a knit 6 purl 2 ribbing, and just had the purl channels continue lining up. Then I did a slip stitch heel flap and gusset with a turn, and then my gusset was completed in 22 rounds. Then I did 45 rounds for the foot past the gusset, and then for the toe I was going to do a gold toe last time, if you remember, but my husband decided that just to continue in the main color, and I actually really like that too. So I knit 2 rounds on magic loop once I got to the toe part, and then alternated decrease rounds, which decreased by 4 stitches, with a knit even round, which means you don't increase or decrease anything. And I did that until I had 20 stitches on the instep, 20 stitches on the sole needle. Then I did only decrease rounds until I got to 8 and 8, and then I Kitchenered it. So love how these socks turned out. I really love the marl and the soft gradient. They're just really nice. So I had him try them on just to make sure they fit. They fit really well. Then I had him give them back and asked him to act surprised when it was Father's Day, because I'll wrap these up for Father's Day. So those are my husband's socks. These are the 6th pair of socks, I believe, that I'm knitting him. 5th, 6th, I can't remember. But he wears them all the time. He doesn't usually wear them out, but he wears them at home. And yeah, so if he'll keep wearing them, I will keep making them. All right, the last finished project I'd like to share with you today are, let me get to my page in my notebook here. These are the April Showers socks, which I'm just naming after what the yarn is called. It is a new to me yarn dyer, new to me yarn base. It's dyed by Michelle of Woolens in Nosh out in Vermont. And this is a 90% superwash Targhee and 10% nylon 3-ply base that comes in 411 yards for 100 grams. And again, this colorway is called April Showers. How beautiful is that? So I finished these socks as part of the 1-week sock challenge hosted by Denise of Earth Jones Girl and Julianne of Twin Stitches Design. And yeah, I love how these turned out. A vanilla sock, self-striping. Vanilla refers to it just being like stockinette round around. Go very quick for me because, again, I use US 2.25 millimeter needles, 9-inch circulars. It just goes quick because I can start and stop wherever. There's not a lot of counting. And it's an easy one to like pick up and put down if I'm playing games with a 5-year-old or I need to help the 2nd grader with some math question. I also don't have to get like flustered if I'm in the middle of a row or something like that in, let's say, lace work or something else where then I lose my place. So pick up, put down wherever, whenever, doesn't matter. Love it. So with these, I'm also knitting them as part of Denise's Socksploration knit along, and that's running through the month of June, where she encourages you to try different things with your socks and encourages you to try out her new sock pattern, Socksploration Shadow Wrap Heel, and that I test knit for her, and I shared my finished socks in the last episode. But yeah, so I use the Shadow Wrap Heel in this pattern and love it. It's so comfortable. So I did an old Norwegian cast on, but I did 60 stitches instead of 56. So I typically use 56 or 60 stitches for my socks. And just for fun, I did 60 this time. I probably could have done 56 just fine because this is more of a plump yarn versus like a 463 yards for 100 grams, 75-25. They tend to be a little bit thinner. So those on a 60 stitches, 60 stitch count are probably a little more comfortable than a 56, but not like a huge difference, but enough that, you know, it might make a little difference. I also think it makes a difference depending on what kind of heel I'm going to put in. So heel flap and gusset, I can make that gusset bigger if I feel like I need it for that heel part and my instep. But if I'm planning on doing like a short row heel, then I don't really have that leeway of changing that once I get to that part. So anyway, so I did old Norwegian cast on with my main color, 60 stitches. I did a 2x2 rib. Then I did my leg until the color repeat finished. Then I knit my contrast color. I cut the main color, knitted my contrast color for 3 rounds before starting the shadow wrap heel portion. Finished off with some rounds within the contrast color so that I could match the width of the stripe in front with the width of the other stripes. And I found each color stripe for me with the stitch count and this needle size and gauge to be about 6 to 7 rounds per stripe, which came out to be about 5 rounds per gram. And that's important to me because if I'm trying to calculate how much yarn I have to finish a foot, knowing how many rounds I get per gram is really useful. So then I decided to finish off with the main color because I, 1, had enough yarn, but 2, it finished a color repeat, just like the leg part did a whole color repeat. Isn't that fun? It's just really satisfying. It doesn't really matter if I ended up in the next color or not, but it's really satisfying to do that. And the same thing happened with the other sock. I had them start at different points just because I was winding them and then stopped and then wound the next part. Yeah, so they both turned out perfectly, just the way they just look really great. Okay, so I don't think I have anything else really to say about this. I ended up using 65 grams of the main color, 8 grams of the contrast color. The skein that I bought was a smaller skein to begin with. I think it was labeled as 70 grams. So it came out perfect for me. Oh, and I forgot to mention what the contrast color was. It's Knit Picks Hawthorne Fingering, which I feel like is a little bit between fingering and sport weight because it's 357 yards for 100 grams, but I really like it. I find it super durable. I've used it also for a lot of heels, toes, cuffs, and this is in the Blueberry Speckle colorway. It's 80% wool and superwash and 20% nylon. Yeah, I really like how it works out. I also think that maybe as like a tip for those who find short row heels slightly like too shallow for like maybe of a higher instep, if you use a yarn that's slightly heavier, then your gauge will change a little bit, but maybe to your favor, like in your favor, because it will create a slightly bigger pocket for your heel. I mean, it makes sense, right? So if you use a yarn that's just a slightly bigger, like I wouldn't necessarily go to DK weight or anything, but if you just went slightly bigger, then your pocket will be slightly bigger, right? Anyway, very comfortable, love these socks. I have iced hot cinnamon tea in this stainless steel tumbler today. Last episode I had hot cinnamon tea in a mug, so it is delicious both ways. So we're going to get into work in progress now. I have a bunch of works in progress, seeing as how I cast on 1.5 million things. But the first one I'd like to share with you is one that's just an ongoing one. So I shared it in the last episode. And it is my grain shawl, which is a free pattern by Tin Can Knits. And this one I am knitting a DK weight version using yarns by Christina of Teal Torch Knits. This cream base neon rainbow speckled yarn I am holding with a set of minis that I have rolled into a magic knot ball. For more on the magic knot ball, well, I was going to say refer to my last episode, but I'm not sure I really talked that much about the magic knot ball other than that I've tried it. But also, I guess I did talk a little bit about when I would use it and when I probably wouldn't, but this is the first time that I am using it, and so far it's working out great. This pattern comes in a variety of different weights and needle sizes, suggested needle sizes. So for the DK weight, it recommends using a US 7. I'm using a US 8, which is a 5mm needle, just because I didn't want it as dense. I have a beautiful progress keeper on here made by my friend Denise of Earth Tones Girl, and it says, just make sure it's turned the right way, do small things with great love. And it is a beautiful reminder. So I've made quite a bit of progress actually, I think, since the last time I shared this with you. Make sure I don't drop any stitches here. It is a triangular shawl that's symmetrical, and I think it's a beautiful gradient. So I started with this very bright pink, which I think faded into a different pink, which then faded into like a purpley pink, which faded into a teal. And I love it. It's pretty simple. The front and back are really no different. And your increases, you do 4 increases on the right side, and that is done by yarn overs. So there's a yarn over on the edge, which creates this border, a garter border with a yarn over eyelet there, and then your center has kind of a garter stitch running down the middle with 2 yarn overs creating these eyelets along the side of it. So then you do your increases on one side and then you just knit the other side. Very easy to also do whenever, or if you're tired. It's also one that I can pick up and put down, except I don't love putting things away when I'm like in the middle of a row, just because, I don't know, I find it kind of disorienting. I had it one time, probably more than once, where I did that, and then when I picked it back up again, I started knitting it going the other way, like back on itself, almost like I was doing a short row, but I didn't mean to, and it just got me really messed up. So ever since that, I don't do that anymore. I always finish a round or a row. I guess I don't have to finish a round because a round is kind of easier to figure out where I am. But when knitting flat, I always try to finish a row. Otherwise, I personally just get too confused. So that's the green shawl. I'm knitting this for my children, and I will just finish whenever the yarn runs out. There's no like special border or anything. It just goes until it's done. So I'm not sure if I'll just like bind off regularly or do a picot edge bind off or what, but whenever I get there is when I get there. I do have another skein of the cream with the neon rainbow speckles, so I won't be running out of that. If I get to the end and I feel like I need to do some sort of special border, then I'll probably just hold the cream neon speckled one double, assuming then I run out of the other colors. So we shall see. And then, let's see. Next work in progress I'd like to share with you. I cast on some thick skiving socks, and that pattern is by Summer of Summer Lee Designs. And it is a ribbed sock, and you do hold fingering weight double. And the recommended needle size, I believe, is a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter. But then based on some of the socks that I've knit my husband in the past, and based on knowing the feel and fit of socks that I've made on DK weight socks before, I sized down to a US 3, which I just find more comfortable. And my husband prefers his socks snug as well, so that's what I'm doing. I am using yarn dyed by Gwen of Bella Filato Studio, and I believe this colorway is Blue Blitz. Let me get out the tag here. Here's the ball band. And here is the info. It is a 75%, 25% superwash merino, 465 yards for 100 grams. And I find when I use that weight of yarn held double, it makes a perfect DK weight. Yeah, it's knitting up beautifully. And something I would recommend, if you are gift knitting, like granted a vanilla or stockinette sock is great, like I love knitting like that, I do find socks with ribbing to be more forgiving. So if you aren't sure of someone's exact fit, you're not around them to have them try it on as you go, I recommend knitting something with ribbing because there's so much more stretch to it. But not only that, it also like cinches back in. So it can really hug someone's feet or leg more comfortably than a stockinette sock. Like it's just more forgiving. So I recommend doing that. So this sock has ribbing throughout the entire leg, and then the top of the foot, and then the bottom of the foot is stockinette. I believe you can like switch out the heel in this one too. A lot of Summer's patterns have several patterns in one. So you can kind of choose your own venture and pick what you want. So I believe in this pattern it came with like a full-on just vanilla stockinette sock, and then one has an afterthought heel. The other one has a more traditional heel flap, like slip stitch heel flap and gusset. I don't know what heel I'm gonna do yet. I might do the shadow wrap heel again and see how it works on a ribbed sock. And because there's ribbing, I feel like you also have more leeway for that instep heel section where some people find can be too short. Because it's ribbing, there's more room. So we'll see when I get to that point. But I have cast on 2 because I like doing mine 2 at a time in tandem. So I'll knit, one to a certain point and then I'll catch up with the other one. Sometimes if I don't want to carry like an entire bag around with me, I might just put it in like a tiny bag and take that with me and then just do like one sock. So yeah, they are on 9-inch circulars and it's going really well, and I love how the color is knitting up. This speckled blue on a white base is showing up so nicely, especially with like the little neon and mint pops of green. I really like it. So, and my husband, I did show him the color, and he really liked it too. Since it is a DK weight pattern, I think I'm gonna save this pair for Christmas. So last year, what I did was I knit the four of us in our family like Christmas themed socks, and we all started wearing them on December 1st. And yeah, that was really fun. So I will save these socks for my husband for December 1st, and for the kids, I'll probably just start knitting them closer to December, maybe in November or something, and kids' socks knit up really quick. And I will probably do those socks ribbed as well. The next one, well, there's one that I won't be sharing with you. It's a test knit that I'm doing from Melissa of Homebody Fibers. It is the Winsome socks. I did share a little sneak peek on my Instagram in a post, and it's in some of the reels or stories, I think, but I won't be sharing that until closer to the publication date. So then the next one I'd like to share with you, continuing the sock exploration theme. This is kind of why I just felt like casting on everything. These are in a beautiful, beautiful patchwork bag by my friend Morgan of Shop Knitting Nelly. I just adore her fabric combinations. She has great color sense, and it just makes me so happy. So this one is called Secret Garden, and when I saw it, I said, oh, that is perfect. I love it so much. Peachy pinks and forest greens, and oh, I just love it. So anyway, this is her sock size bag. And in here I have housed 2 yarns by my friend Shobha of Serendipitous Wool, and they are the yarns I had set aside from my dotted rays shawl that I knit. And it is, let's see, let me get it out here. So this colorway on the toe, this corally peachy color, is speckled peony, and the peachy gold speckled color that's on this foot part is called Fierce, and they are both on an 80/20 superwash merino nylon base. And yeah, I am knitting a sock toe up, which is no like big deal for me. I've done it before, but I would say the majority of the socks I've been knitting have been cuffed down. So what I wanted to do with this one is, because I'm starting with a 50 gram of this foot color and 8 grams of this contrast color, I just wanted to knit until it ran out, and it'll probably end up being shorties, which is what I was kind of aiming for anyway. And I wanted to try the shadow wrap heel on a toe-up sock. Now, it should be identical to knitting it cuff down because it's symmetrical and the same directions one way or the other. The only thing different is knowing when to stop on the foot before starting the heel. So you would want to know how much room to leave for that heel part that's on the bottom of the foot. Whereas like when I'm knitting cuff down, I don't have to think about it that way, because I mean, unless I was picky about the leg length. So it's like the same thing, just think about it flipped around. But the foot part, I feel like you need more of a, not exact, but more of an exact fit than you would of the leg. Like if the leg was a little off by ½ inch, it's not really a big deal. But with the foot, I wouldn't really want it to be off. So anyway, the experiment is to knit it toe up to kind of know my, my stitch counts for that. Let's see, I have them both on US 1 2.25 millimeter 32-inch Chalgu needles. Knitting these ones on Magic Loop. One, because that's what I had available. My 9-inch circulars are in use. But two, I can't try them on if they're on 9-inch circulars. So because I am knitting to know how many rounds I need to go up for my foot, I need to be able to try it on periodically, which means I want them on Magic Loop. So here they are. I have these beautiful bronze progress keepers that I made a while ago. They have a sunstone round bead on them. One is a hummingbird, the other one's a swallow. If you know, you know. I love birds. So they're so cute, aren't they? I love it. I love how these two colors are playing together, and these are just so much fun. The Shadow Wrap heel I'll do in the main color because I don't have a ton of the contrast color left. I'm pretty sure I don't have enough to do a heel on, but I might, like if I wanted to, I could finish it off like a couple rounds on the top of the cuff once I get to that point, if I wanted to add a tiny nugget of the speckled peony on the top. So we shall see. I mean, I think this is like maybe 3 grams at most. Anyway, so that'll be fun. And if I wanted to add another one, this one is a different base though. This one is 75-25, 463 yards for 100 grams. This is her Lanka colorway, and I also use this in my Dotted Rays shawl. And I don't believe I have much left of this one either, but if I wanted to add it somewhere, like a stripe or something, I probably could. So we shall see. So these are a super fun experiment. I just, you know, do you ever get something like in your head and you just have to try it or write it out? Well, I had written it out and then I just had to try it. And if the needles are free and the yarn is there, then I'm going to do it. So anyway, that is ongoing, and maybe it'll be done by next time, maybe it won't. It just really depends. I never know if I'm gonna get back on here in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but you'll see more of it. And I do post and share more frequently on my Instagram account at edible.thoughts.makes. So if you're ever curious as to what is going on, what I'm making, what I finished, that's a good place to check. Yeah, so the next one I'd like to share with you, we'll just continue with the socks, okay? Because we're just all about the socks. This one I have not shared on my Instagram yet. Now this bag I have shared. I sewed this project bag I think a few weeks ago, but it has, I already forgot what the name of this quilt block is, but quilt blocks have names, and I don't know what this one is called. Sawtooth? I think this one's Sawtooth. And I had really wanted to cast on something with tangerine and mint and cream because it just screams spring and summer to me, and it's so delightful. I love it. Well, then my June Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad sock set arrived, and it couldn't have matched any more perfectly. So here is the logo. This is an Indigenous women-owned company. Candace is behind all of this, and she is amazing. This colorway is called Summer Sorbet, and it couldn't be a more perfect name. It is on their Highwood sock base, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards for 100 grams, and I love it. Are you ready to see the yarn? I've cast on already, hence the US 1 needles on 9-inch circulars being in use constantly. Are you so ready? I'm so ready. Okay, I'll show you the mini first because that's not attached right now. The mini is this gorgeous tangerine. Now this tangerine reminds me of like Tang and orange Tic Tacs, and so I have a story about Tang. Tang is that like powder that you mix into water to like create a drink that's probably kind of like Gatorade or Kool-Aid or something like that. I don't even know if they sell Tang anymore, but when I was in high school, I worked at our science museum, and I worked in the paleontology department, and one summer we went on a dig trip, and it was super hot, and we would mix up Tang, like we had Gatorade I think at one point, but you know, once you finish it, we had the containers, the bottles still, and so we would fill them with water and fill them with Tang, shake it up, and then put it in the freezer for the next day to take out with us to the field. And I just remember like sweating out in the middle of like the day with sun just beating down on you, and pulling out my Tang, my frozen Tang out of my backpack, which now had like a wet spot on it from condensation, my hands being super dusty and everything, like just drinking this Tang down. Anyway, that's my memory of this Tang, and it's a good memory, not a bad memory. On that particular trip, we were working on a juvenile triceratops that had been found, and so that was super cool, and yeah, it was just a really neat experience. Okay, so that's the mini. and here is the main color. How beautiful and summery is this? So it's kind of a cream base, and it's got like neon highlighter yellow with some green speckles and some of that tangy orange and some yellow, and it's so summery. I love it. Now, do you want to see what I did with it? I'm so excited to show you. Okay, so I'm knitting these cuff down. Look what I did. So they have this like peekaboo cuff. I'm not following any particular pattern. I'm just doing my own thing here. Let me find my notes so I can tell you what I was doing. So I'm just calling these the summer sorbet socks, going with the yarn name. And I am using the US 1 2.25 millimeter 9-inch circulars. I cast on 56 stitches, and then with the contrast color, the neon orange, or not neon, tangy orange. And then I knit 16 rounds, and then I cut the contrast color, joined the main color, and then I knit 12 rounds in the main color, and then I folded it in half, wrong sides together, and from my cast on edge, I knit that together. And it's still stretchy, it's still very stretchy. And so yeah, I didn't do like a provisional cast on or anything. I just went back and picked up my cast on edge. I did an old Norwegian cast on or German twisted cast on again, and it had a very clean edge for me to pick up a stitch and knit that together with the one that I already had on the needles. And yeah, so isn't it so cute? And then the progress keepers I put on here, this one has like a bejeweled ice cream cone. And then the other one, I believe, has like an ice pop on it. Here you go. So, perfect. Love these. So these will probably be shorties too, and then whatever is remaining, I'll make another pair of socks. But I love how they're turning out. I think they're gonna be so cute. And I'm just gonna do, I think, stockinette for the rest. And then I'll probably do the shadow wrap heel again, because I'm just obsessed with the shadow wrap heel. And yeah, we'll see where this goes. Or who knows? I mean, maybe I'll do a heel flop against it. I don't really know yet. We'll see what I feel like when I get to that point. But I think with that pop of color, the shadow wrap heel could look really cute too. So anyway, that is that. All right, I promise. Last thing. This is in a project bag I sewed probably a few months ago at this point. It's a garden themed one. I love it. It's beautiful. It's bigger than the sock project bag sizes that I've been making. No, none of these are for sale. I don't really do like production line sewing. I like to change things up, experiment and play, and I use them. So the back has a unbleached canvas, same with the bottom, drawstring. Yeah, so in here is a pattern from Jacqueline Cieslak's Embody book. I am trying out the Darren T, and I'm knitting the size 2, I think, which should have a finished circumference of 35.25 inches, which would give me approximately like 3 to 4 inches of positive ease. Gauge is supposed to be 24 stitches by 32 rounds, 4 inches stockinette blocked on US 5 or 3.75 millimeter needles. Now I just did my swatch, and look how drapey it is. Isn't that pretty? So I did my swatch in Malabrigo Susuru, which is a sport weight yarn. The pattern does call for sport weight, and this yarn is 325 yards or 100 grams. It's 25% linen, 25% merino wool, 50% mulberry silk. I've not like knit a finished project with this before. I say finished project because I did start something once and then I ripped it out. So, but I am really liking how this is looking. I will be striping because I only have one skein of each color, and to have enough yardage, I will be striping. I didn't really want to completely do color block, like knit until one ran out and then knit the other one. So I'll probably just add in stripes here and there. On my swatch, I did different widths of stripes to kind of see how it would look. So I'm not completely decided on if I'm going to make them all the same or kind of stripe in different widths. I'll probably end up striping different widths once I get to the body portion, just to keep it interesting. And it looks, I don't know, I think it'll look nice. So the colors I'm using are Sunset, which is this beautiful orange, and Frank Ochre, which is this kind of mustardy yellow. And just because of the unique yarn blend, it does have like a bit of a halo to it, but also kind of a slightly heathered. I don't know if heathered's the right word for it, but there's like these other little bits on it. Anyway, it is really beautiful. I think it's going to be a beautiful lightweight drapey top that can be worn either on its own or layered. Now when I calculated out the yardage that I have, I should be able to knit between the cropped and the full length, which is kind of what I'm going for. So we shall see how that goes. Yeah. Oh, a note on my swatches, I always add like a little paper tag to it where I write on my yardage, I write on my like yarn information and swatch and stuff. My stitch count didn't come out exactly the way it is in the pattern, so I'm either just gonna wing it and still do the size 2 because I think it should work out, or change the size. But I'm not gonna change the needle size because I like this fabric. So we'll see. I think if I stick with the size 2, I should be fine. Because even if I ended up with a little more positive ease, it'll still be comfortable. I'd be more worried if my gauge was off that it would make it smaller. Because in this case, I don't want it smaller. My only issue is in the pattern, it shows a pretty deep scoop neck. And I wouldn't want it any deeper than what it shows. Let me see if I can find a picture to share with you. Here it is. Okay, so this scoop neck is pretty scoopy, and when I've looked at some of the other project pages on Ravelry, some people like will just wear another scoop neck underneath as a layering piece. I just want to make sure it's not so scoopy that I absolutely have to wear something underneath to feel comfortable wearing it. I would like it to be something that I could or choose to or not to wear something underneath it. So we shall see how that goes. I don't know if I'm going to be casting on anytime soon. I feel like I need to reread the pattern a little bit because the construction on this top portion is a little bit different with how it works the shoulders and stuff versus just like a rounded yoke type of sweater that goes straight down. So I just want to make sure I know what I'm doing before I start. I don't love ripping stuff out. I mean, I will if I have to, but I usually try to avoid doing that as much as possible. So I like to do my research ahead of time. What is great about this pattern is that she has a printer-friendly version of it where it only has the written instructions, and then you have these fill in the blanks where you put in the numbers for your size, and you can customize like different parts of it and things like that. So I went in and I printed out my, I guess, worksheet, filled in my numbers, and I just need to read through it to kind of get an idea of what I'm doing before I start. Oh, and then something I shared on my Instagram was I made some really cute little progress keepers to go with the pattern, just for fun, or the project. I'll show you here. Let me, oops, take them off. So I made a little lemon and a little orange, although maybe the orange is more of a kumquat if you compare it to the size of the lemon, but I made them out of polymer clay, and this is polymer clay that has been around for like 25, 30 years. I mean, polymer clay has probably been around longer than that, but I mean, like, for my box of polymer clay has been around for that long. And then when we were cleaning some stuff out, we found a caboodle box. I don't know if you remember caboodle boxes. I think they're from the early 90s. But there was like a container in there of all of these polymer clay things that I had made a long, long time ago. And they were like little pies and little cakes and spoons and forks and, I don't know, maybe not a fork, a knife, that's plate and stuff like that, like a tea party set basically that I made, and they had been baked, so they weren't like smushy or anything, but now my kids play with them, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, since polymer clay is a plastic, it doesn't dry out, so all of that polymer clay, I think Sculpey was the brand, is still good and great to use. So, I mean, if you're a professional, maybe you would notice a difference, but I'm not a professional and it's just fun, and so I just made some really cute little progress keepers to go with this new project. So stay tuned for that. We'll see when I get to it, but I think it would be really fun. So I think that is it. That was a lot of stuff. At first I was thinking, oh, maybe I should just wait till next week because the Odds and Ends cardigan that I had been test knitting by Tina Say is publishing soon, and then I'll get to talk about that. But I think because there's that also, that it was probably good that I did this episode now, and then I have that plus whatever I work on over the next week. So I hope you are doing well. I am still reading the book Pachinko, and it is really good. It's a pretty long book, so I'm like this way through. I don't think that helps you at all, but maybe not even 20% of the way through, but several chapters in, and I'm really enjoying it. It keeps you going, like you want to read the next chapter and find out what's going on, and the characters have been developed like from the beginning and as they get introduced, and yeah, it's a great book. So if you don't know anything about it, go ahead and Google it, look it up. I don't want to accidentally give away any spoilers because I feel like I'm not very good about book reviews without telling you too much information or telling you like wrong information. Like I really don't want to give you wrong information. So look it up. I'll put a screenshot or picture of the book cover here on the screen, so make sure to look up and see that. And yeah, so I think that is everything on my list. I hope you are doing well. If you want to share anything in the comments below, I would love to hear from you, what you're working on, or maybe a funny memory about something. Maybe if yarn reminds you of like a past experience, childhood experience, or anything like that. I think it's really fun how different things can bring us back to different experiences, things that you might not even think would bring up various memories. So it's kind of fun to share that. So with that, cheers to being creative. I hope you are doing well, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.